Hi everyone, doing good? I certainly am. I just finished watching Renfield and I am so excited to talk about it.
It's the real Dracula!
So, just one quick sidebar because this is a relatively recent film. I'm gonna try to avoid talking about many story points because I want you all to watch it. So, without any more filler, let's jump right in. So, Renfield is a movie starring Nicholas Hoult and Nicolas Cage in the starring roles of Renfield and Dracula, respectively. It also stars Aquafina as a very angry traffic cop trying to make it big in her city full of corrupt police. So, for those of you who didn't know, the reason I was excited for this movie is pretty much because the target audience is literally me. I love Nicolas Cage, I love classic horror, and I absolutely love horror comedies. So, I was super excited for this. Obviously, the most important thing for me was Nicolas Cage. On a side note, this isn't the first time he's done this vampire Dracula thing. So, for those of you who haven't watched Vampire's Kiss, definitely check out Vampire's Kiss. That is an amazing movie and one of my favorite Nicolas Cage freakouts.
I never misspelled anything! Not once, not one time!
So, when the film starts, I was a little excited and a little disappointed, which honestly sets a good precedent for the rest of the film. So it starts a little exposition heavy, kind of going through all of the various things Renfield does, and I didn't really like that part, but it did give me a little bit of joy because stylistically it is kind of like an interesting nod to the original 1931 Dracula. And I think the interesting thing for me in this film is that it gives Renfield a whole new perspective. Thinking of him as this like sad little man who is stuck in an extremely abusive relationship with his boss is kind of a new spin on Renfield for me. So I think the especially interesting thing for me is that I'm currently rereading the original Dracula for a completely different review. And thinking of Renfield in this way is so strange for me when I look at the original Dracula, because how far do you think his homicidal tendencies were his own mental illness, and how much of them were kind of, extended upon by Dracula's behavior and Dracula's, power over him? So I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Nicholas Hoult does a really, really good job of playing Renfield. His like sad little puppy image that he has of this like clearly like crazy character that we have never seen portrayed in this way before is so interesting to me personally. And I think that a lot of that has to do with his commitment to that, role of being a codependent.
And I just want a normal life again.
And having this like continuous power struggle about who he is throughout the film. I think that he does a brilliant job of that. It's really interesting how pathetic he comes across as this bug-eating servant. And I mean that in the best way possible. For me especially, it's been a crazy context switch again because I'm reading the original Dracula. And for me to think of Renfield in that and how absolutely vile he is in that original story. And to come from that to this is such an absurd context switch for me. And I am enjoying every minute of it. So for those of you who don't know what the original Renfield is like, this is pretty much an introductory session to Renfield. In the original, he's actually from a mental asylum, and during his time in the mental asylum, he collects bugs which slowly turn into bigger and bigger animals until they're birds. And then when his doctor tells him that he can't get a cat because all of his previous pets have suspiciously disappeared, the next day he's seen doing this. Yeah. And to see him to go from that, into an innocent character who, is just like wanting to go back to his humanity, but he's stuck with Dracula, is absolutely amazing to me. 5 out of 5 color swatch sweaters on his performance. Obviously, I think one of the biggest reasons why this like version of Renfield works so well is Dracula, and I think Nicolas Cage's Dracula is absolutely amazing in this movie. Um, and the reason for that is because he really plays into the campiness of this film. I don't think that this film is like grounded or realistic in any way. So if that's kind of something that you don't like, you probably won't enjoy this film. But Nicolas Cage does a really good job of kind of playing into that campiness and the overall insanity of the plot. And because he leans into that, I think it's so good for this film. And I think that's especially accentuated by the makeup that they use for Dracula in the beginning of this film, that I'm sure took hours of time to put together. I also think they do a really good job of like maintaining some level of vampire lore while, simultaneously admitting that a lot of it gets bungled with the number of like productions and stories that are there on vampirism. Um, One of my favorite tidbits is the one where there's this scene where Nicolas Cage as Dracula walks into Renfield's studio apartment, and you're just like, how did that happen? And then the camera pans down and you see, oh, there's literally a welcome mat in front of his house that is welcoming pretty much anyone and everybody inside. It's little details like that that really made me appreciate this film so much more. Overall, I think this is a really really good Dracula. My only like real qualm I would say with it is that there's really not enough Dracula in this film. I get that he's not like the main lead technically, but he is the main villain, and I think that this film kind of struggles with juggling its large ensemble cast and of characters. And I think unfortunately the Dracula, parts were on the chopping board. Despite these problems, the movie does do a lot with the rest of the cast as well. My favorite is Ben Schwartz as Teddy Lobo, the idiot heir to a crime syndicate. I love how he just cannot keep his mouth shut, and it just works almost all the time. Some of his jokes don't land, but still, it's amazing how much effort he's put into this. And I love especially how he has like no idea how to run anything, and I love how he doesn't give a second of thought to do anything, and it blows up in his face every single time. Awkwafina also does a really entertaining performance as her role of a traffic cop that just wants to like prove something to the world. I think that her comedic chops weren't really used to the maximum potential, and I don't think she was like allowed to shine. So I think a lot of her scenes were also kind of underdeveloped. But I think that also might be because all my attention was taken away by the three male leads. While I quite like this movie, I certainly think that some things could have been improved upon. So, for such a short 90-minute film, I think this movie juggles a lot of storylines like vampires, crime syndicates, corrupt police, AA groups. It's kind of all over the place. And I think that it does do a good job of maintaining the main message of codependency. But that said, it also kind of feels discontinuous. Like a lot of scenes kind of feel like the characters were just placed in those locations rather than there being like a natural flow. But that could have also been because the movie kind of overcommitted to being like a fast-paced, gory comedy. Speaking of, do not watch this movie if you're at all squeamish about blood. You will not enjoy it. I mean, it is insane the amount of blood they have in this movie. It actually feels like an anime in real life. To summarize, I think that this movie is really good for what it is, a simple, messy, bloody, gory vampire comedy. While I think that it didn't do everything well, I think overall it's a pretty good film. I give it like a 7 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if supposing you like this video, and share in the comments what you would like me to review next. Bye!